You're listening to A Light at the Other Side, where we're sharing stories of resilience, healing, and hope. We share the experiences of adoptees, domestic violence survivors, military veterans, and more, so some episodes may contain potentially triggering accounts of trauma. To fully appreciate the light, we must sometimes peer into the dark. Hi, and welcome to Season 2 of The Light at the Other Side. I was absolutely blown away by the response to Season 1. I've been so excited to watch how many people tune in and where they're tuning in from. It's truly been a global response. I'm excited to be back, bringing you 10 more episodes to hopefully inspire you, make you think, or provide some relatable context for your own tough stuff. I wanted to read about finding my way through the darkness and into the light, considering that is the mission of The Light at the Other Side. Falling in love with life again, experiencing joy after trauma, life after death, and happiness after misery. I stood in the shower and just allowed the hot water to hit my lower back. The aromatherapy puck I dropped on the floor of the shower was steaming up waves of lavender and patchouli, and I breathed deep, counted my breaths, and began feeling the tension I held in my shoulders, chest, neck, and back slowly release. It struck me that perhaps the only other time I just stood in the shower was when I was crying. Now I wasn't. I was at peace, content, and just unwinding from a typical day being a mom to a big family. And for the first time, maybe ever, I didn't think about how much money that extra 5 minutes of water was costing me. I just relaxed and enjoyed a few moments of comfort, peace, and solitude, alone with my breaths and my thoughts, my aching body slowly releasing all those tense spots. When I emerged, incredibly refreshed and rejuvenated, I eagerly told my husband, "You should go just stand in the shower. Just stand there. It's awesome." He looked a bit confused. I do, all the time. Once again, I was reminded of how many little ways I'd been robbed of the most innocent and accessible forms of joy by a hypervigilance of what I was raised to believe was appropriate. Like many adults who were raised in pretty conservative homes, we, mostly girls, had all kinds of restrictions on our lives. No spaghetti straps, no shorts above the knee, no makeup or excessive hair products, nothing that could be claimed as vanity. My female adopter had very stringent rules on bathing. We could only fill the bathtub with about, I'd estimate, 4 to 5 inches of lukewarm water. If showering, we had a very brief window, typically around 5 minutes, before she was knocking on the door telling us to turn off the water, and the hot water temperature was kept so low it was barely warm at best. I barely had time to adequately wash everything before hearing that knock. Knowing what I now know of their finances, it most certainly was not a legitimate fiscal concern that led to this hyper-control. An extra 5 minutes of water usage for my showers wouldn't have put the slightest dent in their sizable nest egg. So what was the deal? Other than outright control? The allegiance to a lifestyle so Spartan it could be considered virtuous, not allowing children the indulgences of long hot baths or long hot showers or lovely scented lotions, a bit of mascara, and clothing that fit in with their peers. This was all designed to make their children walking examples of their Puritan lifestyle. Look how frugal they are. Their daughter doesn't walk around in makeup and cloying perfume. She's all buttoned up and fresh-faced. Good job, parents. I watched my friends go in groups to the Clinique counter at the mall, buying the coveted pale green compact. All they bought was foundation and powder to cover acne, a little blush, a little mascara, and some of that 90s special brown lipstick. Contouring was an unknown back then, at least to the rural white girl set. They looked perfectly in tune with their age. In other words, her hysteria was radically overblown and without merit. When I left home, I couldn't wait to buy myself makeup. Once I got settled and on my feet, I distinctly remember going to a drugstore and staring at the CoverGirl display in bewilderment. Where to even begin? I learned, and I also learned that makeup gave me a bit of a confidence boost. I never have been too heavy-handed with it, and I just used enough to complement what I wanted to show off and hide what I didn't, and I think I've always looked natural and appropriate while wearing it. Perhaps the confidence was also what she feared. Indulging myself with new makeup occasionally still feels a bit scandalous, like I should be using that $20 elsewhere and I'm being so frivolous. I do it anyway, because it's okay. It brings me joy, and that makes it worth it. Joy is the reason, and that is enough. I think I had the first real existential crisis after the death of my first husband. He died suddenly in a car accident in 2009. It was unbearably tragic. In the following months, many times I would look at myself in the mirror and wonder what was the plan for my life. Why am I here when he is gone? I struggled for a couple of years, and I had already been struggling for a couple before his death. I was completely overwhelmed and completely alone. Beyond that, I had people actively working to cause me harm in my life, and I was alone, so alone, standing against all of them. I look back at pictures of myself then. I was so small, so thin, so frail, with faint dark circles under my eyes in so many photos. I had my back against the wall and was fighting for my life and the lives of my children, and I was surrounded by people who knew just enough of my childhood trauma to attempt to use it against me at every conceivable turn. When I was 8 months pregnant with my youngest son in 2008, I was working as a government contractor for the Department of Defense. I was on a call with a client in Baghdad when I suddenly lost the ability to speak. I could hear them, but I couldn't formulate words, and I was extremely cognizant of it. I also could not type. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, and I seemed frozen while being totally aware of it happening. I finally willed myself to muster every bit of strength I had, stood up, and promptly fainted. I was 138 pounds while 8 months pregnant, had a mini stroke, and was diagnosed with dehydration and malnutrition. I was wasting away, and no one cared. There was no one in my corner. No one. When my first husband died the following year, it became truly the fight of my life. I had to fight his family for custody of my own child. I'll never forget the feeling of driving from South Carolina to Virginia after all the legal battles concluded, with my son strapped safely into his car seat in the back seat, my little brood complete once more. I vowed to never allow them to be split up, ever again. After the initial shock and grieving period wore off, I began looking to my future. If I was still here, there had to be a reason. I needed to honor the space my first husband left in this universe and fill it with all good things. I turned my attention toward nonprofit work. I left that government job, went back to college, and began volunteering. I began being really intentional at taking the higher ground again and again and again, not allowing myself to be baited into manipulative arguments, no longer giving away my peace as easily as I once did. I guarded my little bit of joy, and I fed it. I fed it long hot showers and scented lotions. I fed it long evenings reading good books. I fed it by spending hours with my children, hiking, playing games, watching movies together all snuggled up on the couch, stacks of pancakes on Saturday mornings, and big traditional dinners for every holiday. In the process, I began finding myself to be an actual human being. I built self-confidence and self-assurance. I presented on an executive level at work. I slayed with complex presentations of fund development and strategic planning to nonprofit boards, so much so that I began being invited to sit on a few boards myself and eventually began my own consulting firm. I found within myself this very cool, very creative, complex person, all of which had been squashed down to fit this demure, fresh-faced role I'd been forced to play. I liked who I found. The older I grew, the more I focused my attention on myself, on therapy and self-examination, and the massive energy I poured into being a mother, the more that joy grew. I began seeing those others in my life for what they were, and I learned what boundaries are and how to starve a narcissist. I wasn't giving that joy away again, ever. Obviously, I have bad days. I have depressive periods. Every day is not a cakewalk, not even close. But a bad day 13 years ago may have ended with me trying to cover a black eye with makeup, or crying in the bathroom, or hiding the car keys so they couldn't be taken from me, or repairing a hole in the wall with putty and a patch. My bad days then were about survival. Now they're different. Now I have the space to exist on a higher plane because I remove myself from situations that required constant survival skills to one in which I am safe, secure, and respected. By that measure, I don't have bad days anymore. Not really. I have challenging days. And because I learned all the ways to love and support myself emotionally and mentally, I can navigate those challenging days much more easily. Overall, my life is so rich and abundant today. I see the lives of all of those who work so hard to tear down a young 20-something mom with no family to speak of, who intentionally and willfully harmed, betrayed, manipulated, and used her. And I see the fruit of their life's energy played out all these years later. It's not pretty. I believe karma is very real, and the energy you put into the universe will come back to you sooner or later. Life handed me a bushel of rotten lemons. I managed to pick through them, find a few good seeds, plant them, and threw out the rest. And I regret nothing. I don't regret a single divorce. I don't regret discontinuing contact with certain people and groups of people. I never regret choosing myself. Every time I drive up into the Appalachian Mountains, I am transfixed. I sometimes have to pull over to fully take in the scenery. I've never understood people who aren't awed by majestic scenery. Most of the people who occupied my life in the 20s never understood why I wanted to slow down and take in a great landscape, the horizon at sunset, or the Blue Ridge Mountains in autumn. I've noticed I've had this little habit going back as far as I can remember of intentionally finding tiny vignettes of beauty in life. I love, for example, the way cream swirls into the black of coffee like a galaxy exploding in a cup. Or standing on top of Max Patch Bald, a field on top of a mountain outside Hot Springs, North Carolina, where a dedicated hiker is rewarded with a 360-degree mountaintop view of miles and miles of smoky mountains from a grassy field covered in summer with wildflowers. The beauty of life frequently renders me speechless. A glistening drop just hanging precariously from a delicate spider web, the way a young child's eyelashes lay on their cheeks when they sleep, the way your teenage son looks at his first love. It makes my heart feel like it's going to grow and grow and grow until it bursts. One of the final affirmations that my husband is my person is when I drove him up into my mountains, and my God, the sheer amount of times he made comments about the scenery. We climbed to the top of Max Patch, and he saw what I did. He saw the beauty. He got it. I knew that this man, a man capable of seeing joy after going through hell in his life, now this is a man I could build something with, because part of our foundation would be joy. And we have, and it is. I'm glad I've intentionally chosen to fall in love with life again instead of letting it beat me and snuff out my spark. Lord knows enough people tried. I reckon I don't go down that easy. It's not even hard. A few moments of self-indulgence with a hot shower or a pretty lipstick. Choosing to refuse to respond to negativity and cattiness and instigation. Let me instead be enraptured with the way my son's delicate fingers curl around the neck of his guitar to play beautiful music while they are out there sputtering and bitter and mad, their childish jabs failing to find their mark. Let them be mad. Let them choke on their dusty old lies and assumptions and projections while you sip fragrant tea and sink into the comfort of a home that is calm and unbothered, warm and inviting, a safe space for all who come through. No one's life is perfect, but peace transcends perfection. We can be imperfect, messy people, but bound by unconditional love and a commitment to choose joy and respect, we can still maintain peace. I choose it. I claim it. I deserve it. The dawn of a new year is breaking, and I find a renewed commitment with myself today to continue to choose joy and choose peace and choose to find the beauty in every crack and crevice so that I am continually so awed and humbled by the world around me, to keep me grounded, to keep me rooted, to keep my eyes focused on the good. I highly recommend it. Spend your time looking for the good, and you'll find you begin having far less space for ugly, contentious bitterness in your life. Choose to seek the light, and joy will find you, right where you are. I wrote this on New Year's this year. It's a time of year when people are setting resolutions for themselves. Many times people dream that upon the rolling over of midnight into a new year, they will become different people. They'll fundamentally change their patterns, habits, lifestyle choices, preferences, all to fulfill some pie-in-the-sky resolutions. Needless to say, statistics show that most of these resolutions fail within weeks. Turns out, it's really hard to completely change yourself overnight. One of my more quiet resolutions this year was to become less nice. That's right, less nice. I want space to be kind, so I need to be less nice. If you're confused, it's okay. Let's break it down. Kindness is genuine concern, caring, and altruism. There's no law or rule stating that kindness needs to come in a nice package, although it frequently does. However, kindness doesn't always come in a nice package because nice can be fake. I'm going to list some attributes side by side for clarity. Nice, never wants to rock the boat, most concerned with not upsetting someone, afraid to speak up when they witness unkind behavior, worried about being liked. Kind, willing to make waves, most concerned with doing what's right, willing to speak up and take a stand. You see, nice is surface level, sometimes cowardly, and easily abandoned. In fact, many nice people become not nice real quick when they don't get their way. Kind is a way of life. Kind is letting the people around you know that they matter too with your actions, not just your words. For years and years of my life, I was nice. Many call this people-pleasing, or quite simply codependent. I was nice to people that were rude to me, thinking my niceness somehow won me more universe points than their rudeness. People used me, stepped on me, took advantage of me, sucked up everything I was willing to put forth, all of the effort, energy, and labor, time, and mental space, because I didn't yet have the vocabulary or experience to set more appropriate boundaries. I didn't know they were taking advantage, but they did. Absolutely they did. So when they ghosted or openly betrayed me in some way, I was devastated, didn't see it coming. My niceness had formed blinders on me to people's true intentions, belied by their behaviors, how their words and actions didn't line up, how I could drop everything to do something for them, only to never have that energy returned. I'd been aware of this issue for quite a while and working to address it when a particularly painful incident happened a couple of years ago. Without going into too much detail, I found myself absolutely crushed and examining each of the last interactions with a fine-tooth comb, looking for where I went wrong. All I saw was setting boundaries for our household and expressing a concern born out of love. Regardless, I was ghosted. Further, I was accused of theft, even when the accusation was easily and quickly disproven with, as they say, receipts. Clearly, I had somehow hurt them with my words, but instead of simply addressing that with me, having a conversation to alert me to what I said or did that was this egregious, they demonstrated what my worth had been to them all along by simply severing the relationship and moving right along. I was devastated for months, really years, and I still hurt over it. But what I've learned is to take heed to Maya Angelou's wise words, reminding me when someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. There were many examples over the course of that friendship in which I would fail to set boundaries and would sacrifice my time and energy to meet their needs. We felt like, and treated them like, they were family, but we were held more at arm's length. But I hadn't heeded those red flags, even when my husband pointed them out in real time. I forged ahead, insistent on being nice. All nice got me was my heart broken. When I finally became kind, when I shared my true concern and set a boundary, their niceness melted away and reality set in. I'd been living a fantasy the whole time. I vowed to never again let niceness be my downfall. Perhaps what happened was that this painful undoing was what finally let loose my words. I shed the remainder of this niceness and allowed myself to prioritize me. I started saying no to people. I stopped volunteering for things. I stopped giving away 105% of myself and started building boundaries. And I started telling my stories, no matter who read them or heard them or saw them, because as Anne Lamott so famously said, tell your story. If people wanted you to write warmly about them, they should have behaved better. If I lose some of the people in my social circle because I set boundaries, stop doing and giving to others, and prioritize myself sometimes, those people were never friends to begin with. They were leeches, sticking around to suck whatever they could out of me. Falling in love with life again has made my circle very, very small. I find that a lot of people our age don't have time for a lot outside their family and homes. They're raising children, building to the apex of their careers, managing their mental health and or sobriety, and diving into their own creative pursuits, writing, painting, songwriting. When friends hold the power to cause so much hurt and damage, it feels risky to begin yet another relationship that could end in emotional nuclear fallout. Friendships can also bring a wealth of love and support, so I'm working on mustering enough trust to step out and allow myself to be slightly vulnerable again, to be a good friend to those who have been good friends to me. Although they are few, they are mighty. My best friend Terry, my sister from another mister, works sun up to sundown raising 4 kids, 2 of whom are 5-year-old twins. She's incredible, loyal, and kind. My best friend Tanisha, who's been an ally and support for well over a decade at this point, who shows up when I'm weary with a kind word, shows up when we desperately need help, like when I was hospitalized when our daughter was but 4 months old and she came to care for her, and shows up to celebrate, wedding, birthday, or just Sunday dinner. My friend Phil and his lovely wife Muriel, whose friendship is strung on gossamer strings across the state as we live parallel lives, parenting, working, gardening, pruning away some of the tough stuff life handed us to give our children a peaceful, nurturing childhood. My friend Lisa, whose ethereal chillness calms my soul when I'm around her, and who wraps my whole family in her arms with her love for us. My friends Mark and Brett, who went from regulars at the coffee shop where I worked in college to guests at my wedding, as they won my heart with their earnest goodness that just shines through them, illuminating their hearts in an often cruel world. And of course, my husband Keith, who has seen me at my worst and continues to show up in every conceivable way, day after day. Drawing down my focus, no longer focusing on how I could make the world better out there, I began focusing on how I could make a life better for me, for us, for my family. I've given years of my life to others, Now I'm giving my energy to loving my life again. Life is breathtakingly beautiful in the most random moments. I'm glad I got out of my own way so I could see that. Once again, thank you so much for listening. There's a Facebook group for listeners. The link is in the description. I invite you to join, discuss, make new friends, and find out about all of my projects. I have another podcast launching May 3rd, and this one's going to be a little different. First of all, I'm launching it on my new Substack, Doesn't She Shut Up, and it will be behind a paywall. The subscription will cover a weekly newsletter as well as a weekly podcast. The podcast of the same name will be more aggressive, shall we say, with more of my socio-political commentary, so I can focus the light on the other side to stories of healing, renewal, and hope. In this season of The Light at the Other Side, I'll be starting to share some stories from other contributors, and I'm always open to sharing your stories, so contact me if you're interested. I so appreciate your continued support, and I hope you'll tune in again next week. See you then.